Hey guys, Dr. Morse, injury experts. Significant injury for Daniel Jones. On a relatively routine play, he steps back and that right leg gave way. Now, unfortunately, this was confirmed to be an Achilles tear. Now, yes, he tried to get up. You could see he couldn't really plant in what we call heel toe, and he could not have a normal gait. Eventually went to the ground. They evaluated him, and then he left. But it's a moot point because, yes, he indeed did tear his Achilles tendon. Now, there's a couple possibilities as to why. He's on the younger side as opposed to guys like Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, who both had this. But remember, Deshaun Watson also had this last year. So over the last 3 years, we've had those three quarterbacks and now Daniel Jones. We've had a ton of running backs. And for the most part, wide receivers and tight ends are relatively spared. Now, one of the annoying things here is that these are such a big deal. We haven't seen Kirk Cousins, we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers look the same ever again. They didn't really have a lot of mobility. Yes, they are older, but it's still a big deal. We only have a couple cases, and those are 20 to 30 years ago. The NFL has changed dramatically. Now, the Colts were adamant that they wanted to bring Daniel Jones back in light of how well he was doing and how well the team was doing. Let's see if this Achilles injury changes anything. Now, Riley Leonard went into the game because Anthony Richardson suffered an orbital fracture, a fracture around his eye, about a month-ish ago in practice, and he either needed surgery or whatever the indication was. He has not been cleared to return. So Riley Leonard came out and ended up doing half decent. As of right now, I'm expecting him to take over, but that's unfortunately awful news for the Indianapolis Colts, which went from the number 1 seed to probably going to be falling out of the playoffs. Now, let's talk about some of the data for Achilles tears. Now, we've seen this phenomenon over the past 3 years or so, and before that, it was really rare. This is the data for all of the players over the past 8 years that have suffered Achilles tears. Now, this is specifically the pre and post data for the stats after Achilles tears. You can go back as far as Dan Marino and Vinny Testaverde, and then you have the couple quarterbacks that I just mentioned earlier. Deshaun Watson has not obviously returned, so we can't use any data from him. But it's an unfortunate injury. He's going to undergo repair. This is probably going to what we call a speed bridge. We don't know who's doing it, if it's going to be Dr. Neil Eltrash out in LA, or one of the surgeons that's more local to Indianapolis, or one of the other specialists, Dr. Malley, Dr. Parekh. I don't know who's going to do it. Maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But the important thing to understand is, A, his 2025 season is done, and his 2026 season is in flux as a result of this taking at least 9 months, sometimes up to 12, just depending on how well they do. Now, the rehab's come a long way, but there is an issue here, and this is his right throwing arm, right throwing leg. So this is a power issue, similar to what happened with Kirk Cousins, as opposed to Aaron Rodgers, who was his left leg. Now, the other thing to make note of, this is not the same side as his fibula fracture. That was a left fibula fracture, which is the small bone on the outside of the ankle that they initially called a calf and eventually got upgraded to a fibula fracture. It probably happened before the bye, and then he's basically been playing through it ever since. It's probably relatively close to healed. But one of the things that can technically happen that we do see a lot of is when someone is dealing with the injury on, say, the left side with his fibula fracture, he doesn't want to put as much weight and as much energy to transfer on that side because he's concerned about that healing and that fracture. So what does he do? He puts it on the other side. Now he's got to do a lot more work on that same side. And we've seen a significant change over the past couple of years with a lot of these Achilles tears. It's multifactorial. I think the turf plays a role. I think travel plays a role. They have longer schedules. They don't practice as much. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger. And we've also seen something significantly in the NBA where guys are no longer landing and pushing off of their midfoot or the front of their foot. They're actually fully planting their leg, and as a result, that energy is transferring to the Achilles tendon. And when that happens, it tears, and that's all she wrote. Now, if we want to play devil's advocate, if we put an ultrasound on Daniel Jones's calf and Achilles tendon yesterday morning before he tore it, you would see significant tearing and weakness in that tendon. I would not have been able to tell you, yes, it's going to tear today, but I would have said, yes, this is significant risk of rupture given what you see on ultrasound. Now, MRI might not have been as sensitive, but a lot of guys don't have any issues. Sometimes they get tenderness. Sometimes they're dealing with a calf issue. That's what we see a lot of the times in the NBA, where several of the guys, Halliburton, Jason Tatum, Damian Lillard, all of these guys admitted to having calf issues before they tore their Achilles on the same side. So that calf cannot handle the same level of stress, so it translates that energy to the Achilles tendon. And unfortunately, there is a very important area in the Achilles tendon that does not have good blood flow, does not have good healing properties, and as a result, it starts to fray until it eventually tears. Unfortunate injury, significant injury. I hope Daniel Jones, because he's younger, is able to come back and look relatively decent, but the data is not pretty right now. From a other position perspective, pretty much every other running back has failed, every other wide receiver, and every other tight end has failed. The only exception to the rule right now is J.K. Dobbins. And we've seen Donta Foreman in the past look really good, but it took him almost 4+ years to return. That is a long time. We've seen multiple guys re-tear. Deshaun Watson re-tore his same tendon. I don't know if he was doing something stupid or if it was a graph issue, I don't know. Then we saw Marlon Mack tear his twice. We don't know if it was same side or other side. We also saw Cam Akers actually tore both of his. So these can be problematic, and these are frustrating injuries. I wish Daniel Jones the best of luck, but that is a deep dive into his Achilles tear.